The diner's neon sign flickered, casting a red glow over the rain-slicked pavement of Main Street. Willow Creek. Tom Sullivan, a 45-year-old police officer with a jaw carved from years of duty, sat in his patrol car, staring at the crumpled note in his hand. Meet me at Rosie's Diner. 7 p.m. Jamie. His son's handwriting was unmistakable, but the urgency in those words twisted something deep in Tom's gut. He pushed open the diner's door, the bell jingling like a warning. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and fried onions, and the hum of conversation paused as eyes flicked toward him. Willow Creek's finest, a man whose badge carried the weight of a town's trust. But tonight, Tom wasn't here as a cop. He was here as a father, and the uncertainty in his chest felt heavier than his service weapon. Jamie sat in a corner booth, his 17-year-old frame hunched over a milkshake, his dark hair falling over eyes that refused to meet Tom's. The boy's usual confidence, the spark that made him captain of the soccer team, was gone, replaced by a nervous energy that made Tom's heart lurch. "Hey, kid," Tom said, sliding into the booth, his voice softer than he meant it to be. "What's this about?" Jamie's fingers tightened around the glass, his knuckles pale. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Something big." His voice cracked, and Tom leaned forward, every instinct honed from years of interrogations, screaming that this moment would change everything. The diner buzzed around them, oblivious to the storm brewing in their booth. Sarah, the barista with a rainbow pin on her apron, shot Jamie a reassuring smile from behind the counter. She'd known Jamie since he was a kid, sneaking extra whipped cream onto his hot cocoa. Across the room, Ethan Caldwell, a grizzled mechanic and Tom's old high school buddy, watched with a frown, his arms crossed. Willow Creek was a small town, and secrets didn't stay buried long. "Whatever it is, Jamie, you can tell me," Tom said, his voice steady despite the dread pooling in his stomach. He'd faced down drug dealers and bar fights, but nothing scared him like the fear in his son's eyes. Jamie took a deep breath, his gaze finally lifting. "Dad, I'm gay." The words hit Tom like a bullet, sharp and sudden. His mind blanked, the diner's noise fading to a dull roar. Gay. His son. The boy he'd raised to throw a perfect spiral, to stand tall, to be his son. Tom's first instinct was to laugh it off, to say it was a phase, but the raw honesty in Jamie's face stopped him cold. This wasn't a joke. This was real. Tom's silence stretched too long, and Jamie's expression crumpled. "I knew you'd hate me," Jamie whispered, shoving his milkshake away. "I shouldn't have said anything." "No," Tom said quickly, his voice rough. "I don't hate you. I need a minute. Okay." He ran a hand through his graying hair, his wedding ring glinting under the diner's lights. He thought of his wife, Laura, waiting at home with their younger daughter, Mia. What would they think? What would the town think? Tom was a man of order, of rules, and this didn't fit. Sarah approached with a coffee pot, sensing the tension. "Everything okay over here?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm, like she was ready to step in if needed. Tom nodded curtly, but his eyes stayed on Jamie, who was staring at the table like it held all the answers. "I'm not ashamed, Dad," Jamie said, his voice gaining strength. "I've known for a while. I didn't want to hide it from you anymore." Tom's chest tightened. He'd always told Jamie to be honest, to be brave. But now, faced with his son's truth, Tom felt like he was the one failing the test. "Who else knows?" he asked, his cop instincts kicking in, needing facts to ground him. Just Sarah and Alex, Jamie said, his voice softening at the name. Tom's brow furrowed. Alex Martinez, the quiet kid from the art club, always sketching in the park. Tom had seen them together, laughing, but he'd never thought. His mind raced, piecing together moments he'd missed. Alex, Tom repeated, his tone neutral, but his thoughts anything but. He didn't know what to feel: anger, confusion, or something deeper, something like fear. Not of Jamie, but of what this meant for him, for their family, for the life Tom had built. The diner door swung open, and Ethan sauntered over, his boots heavy on the linoleum. Trouble in paradise. Sullivan, he said, his tone teasing but his eyes sharp. Tom shot him a look that could have stopped a riot, but Ethan just chuckled. Kids. Huh. Always stirring up something. Mind your business, Ethan, Tom said, his voice low. Ethan raised his hands in mock surrender and walked off, but Tom knew the gossip would spread by morning. Willow Creek thrived on whispers. Jamie stood abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. I'm not doing this here, he said, his voice shaking. I thought you'd at least try to understand. Before Tom could stop him, Jamie was out the door, disappearing into the rain. Tom sat frozen, the note still clenched in his fist. Sarah set the coffee pot down, her expression fierce. He's a good kid, Tom. Don't screw this up. She didn't wait for a response, turning back to the counter. Tom stared out the window, watching the rain blur the world outside. He'd spent his life protecting this town, but could he protect his son from it? Could he protect himself from the truth? The weight of Jamie's words settled over him, heavy and unyielding, as the first crack in the Sullivan family's foundation began to form. Tom drove home through the rain, his patrol car's wipers slicing through the downpour. Jamie's words echoed in his head, I am each syllable a challenge to everything Tom thought he knew. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, as he pulled into the driveway of their modest two-story home, where Laura's garden bloomed despite the storm. Inside, Laura was in the kitchen, her auburn hair tied back as she chopped vegetables for dinner. Mia, their 12-year-old daughter, sat at the counter, doodling in her sketchbook. The normalcy of it all felt like a betrayal, a facade hiding the chaos in Tom's heart. Where's Jamie? Laura asked, glancing up with a smile that faded when she saw Tom's face. He's out, Tom said, his voice tight. He wanted to tell her, to spill everything, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he grabbed a beer from the fridge and sank into a chair, the cold bottle grounding him. Laura set down her knife, her eyes narrowing. Tom, what's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. He took a long swig, avoiding her gaze. Jamie told me something tonight. At the diner. He paused, the weight of the truth pressing against his ribs. He says he's gay. Laura froze, her hands still on the counter. Mia looked up, her pencil pausing mid-stroke. Gay? Laura repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Our Jamie. Tom nodded, his jaw tight. Yeah. Our Jamie. The kitchen fell silent, the only sound the distant patter of rain. Laura's face cycled through shock, confusion, and something softer understanding. Did he say anything else? She asked, stepping closer. He mentioned Alex Martinez, Tom said, the name bitter on his tongue. Said he's known for a while. Didn't want to hide it anymore. Mia's voice broke the tension. So, Jamie likes boys. That's cool, right? Her innocence cut through Tom's turmoil, but it didn't ease the knot in his chest. Laura shot Mia a gentle smile. It's okay, sweetie. It's just new for us. She turned to Tom, her eyes searching. What did you say to him? Tom's shoulders slumped. Not enough. He thinks I hate him. The admission burned, and Laura's expression softened. She reached for his hand, but he pulled away, standing abruptly. I need air. He stepped onto the porch, the rain a steady drum against the roof. His mind churned with memories teaching Jamie to ride a bike, cheering at his soccer games, the pride he'd felt watching his son grow into a man. But now, that man was someone Tom didn't fully understand, and the gap between them felt like a chasm. The next morning, Willow Creek was abuzz. Tom felt the stares as he walked into the precinct, his uniform crisp but his mind frayed. Ethan's gossip had spread, and by noon, whispers of Sullivan's kid followed him like a shadow. His partner, Officer Rachel Nguyen, noticed his distraction during their patrol. You okay, Tom? She asked, her voice low as they cruised past the high school. Family stuff, he muttered, his eyes scanning the street. Rachel didn't push, but her silence was heavy with questions. At home, Jamie hadn't returned. Laura's calls went to voicemail, and Mia's worry was palpable. He's at Alex's, Laura said, her voice strained. I texted Sarah. She saw them together. Tom's jaw clenched. Alex. The kid with the sketchbook. Always quiet. Always watching. Tom had never thought much of him, but now he was the center of this storm. I'm going to get him, Tom said, grabbing his keys. Laura grabbed his arm. Tom, don't. He needs space. You need to think about what you're going to say. I'm his father, Tom snapped. I'm not letting him run off. She held his gaze, her voice firm. You're his father, not his jailer. If you go in there angry, you'll lose him. Tom's anger flared, but her words hit home. He sank back into the chair, the fight draining out of him. I don't know how to do this, Laura. I don't know how to be okay with this. She knelt beside him, her hand on his knee. You don't have to be okay right now. You just have to love him. Can you do that? Tom didn't answer, but her words lingered as he drove to the precinct the next day. The town felt different now, its familiar streets tainted by judgment. At the coffee shop, Sarah's rainbow pin seemed to glare at him, a silent accusation. He wanted to be the father Jamie needed, but the path forward was murky, and every step felt like a risk. Tom found Jamie at Alex's house, a small bungalow on the edge of town. Alex's mother, Maria, answered the door, her expression wary but kind. He's upstairs, she said, stepping aside. Be gentle, Tom. He's hurting. The words stung, but Tom nodded, climbing the stairs to Alex's room. Inside, Jamie sat on the floor, his back against the bed, while Alex sketched at a desk cluttered with pencils and paints. The room was a riot of color, walls covered in vibrant drawings, portraits, landscapes, and one unmistakable sketch of Jamie, laughing under a willow tree. Dad. Jamie's voice was small, his eyes wide with surprise. Alex set down his pencil, his posture tense. We need to talk, Tom said, his voice gruff but controlled. He glanced at Alex. Alone. Alex stood, but Jamie grabbed his hand. He stays. He's part of this. Tom's chest tightened, but he nodded, sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm not here to yell, Jamie. I want to understand. Jamie's eyes narrowed, guarded. You didn't seem to want to understand at the diner. I was shocked, Tom admitted, his voice raw. I didn't expect this. But I'm here now, and I'm trying. Alex spoke up, his voice steady despite the tension. Mr. Sullivan, Jamie's been scared to tell you for years. He loves you. He just wants you to see him for who he is. Tom looked at Alex, really looked at him for the first time. The kid was slight, with dark eyes that held a quiet strength. Tom saw the way Jamie's shoulders relaxed when Alex spoke, the way their hands brushed with unspoken trust. It hit Tom that these weren't just kids. They were in love. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Tom said, his voice breaking. I've spent my life keeping things in order, keeping people safe. But this, I don't know how to protect you from this. Jamie's eyes softened. I don't need you to protect me, Dad. I need you to accept me. The words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Tom thought of the town, of Ethan's sneers, of the whispers at the precinct. But he also thought of Laura's hand on his knee, of Mia's innocent question, of the love he'd always had for his son. I'm trying, Jamie, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I promise I'm trying. Jamie nodded, tears in his eyes. That's all I want. Tom left the bungalow with a fragile hope, but the town's judgment waited outside. At the precinct, Rachel pulled him aside. Words out. Tom. People are talking. Some of the guys, they're not kind. Let them talk, Tom said, his voice hard. But inside, he felt the weight of their stares, the same stares he'd once ignored as a cop upholding the law. Now, they were aimed at his family, and it cut deeper than he'd expected. That night, Laura organized a family meeting. Mia sat cross-legged on the couch, her sketchbook forgotten. Jamie hesitated at the door, but Laura pulled him into a hug. We're in this together, she said, her voice fierce. All of us. Tom watched his family, the love in Laura's eyes, the hope in Mia's, the fear in Jamie's. He wanted to be their rock, but he was crumbling. I don't know if I can do this, he admitted, his voice low. Not because of you, Jamie. Because of me. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Laura's hand found his, steady and warm. You're stronger than you think, Tom. We'll figure this out. Together. The next day, Tom faced the precinct with new resolve. He ignored the whispers, focusing on his work, but Ethan's voice cut through during lunch. Your kid's making waves. Sullivan. You gonna let him ruin your reputation? Tom stood, his chair scraping the floor. My son's not ruining anything. He's my family. You got a problem with that? Take it up with me. The room went silent, and Ethan backed off, but Tom knew the battle was far from over. Willow Creek was watching, and so was his family. He'd promised Jamie he'd try, and for the first time, he felt the weight of that promise not as a burden, but as a lifeline. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Tom threw himself into his work, but every call, every patrol, carried the undercurrent of Willow Creek's gossip. Jamie returned home, but the house felt different, like a puzzle with pieces that no longer fit. Laura kept the family grounded, her quiet strength holding them together. But Tom saw the strain in her eyes, the worry she hid for Jamie's sake. At school, Jamie faced his own battles. Whispers followed him in the halls, and a group of seniors led by Ethan's son, Caleb, made it clear he wasn't welcome. Freak, Caleb muttered one day, shoving past Jamie in the cafeteria. Alex was there, his hand steady on Jamie's shoulder, But the hurt in Jamie's eyes was a knife to Tom's heart when he heard about it. Tom wanted to storm the school, to demand answers, but Laura stopped him. "You can't fight his battles for him," she said. "He needs to know we're behind him, not in front of him." So Tom tried a different approach. He invited Alex over for dinner, a gesture that surprised even himself. The meal was tense, Mia's chatter filling the silence as Jamie and Alex exchanged cautious glances. Tom watched them, seeing the way Alex's presence calmed Jamie, the way their laughter softened the edges of the room. For the first time, Tom saw his son not as the boy he'd raised, but as the young man he was becoming. After dinner, Tom found Jamie in the backyard, kicking a soccer ball against the fence. "You're happy with him, aren't you?" Tom asked, his voice low. Jamie stopped, the ball rolling to a halt. "Yeah, Dad. I am." Tom nodded, his throat tight. "Good. That's good." The moment was small, but it was a start. At the precinct, Tom faced new challenges. A complaint came in an anonymous tip about inappropriate behavior at the park, naming Jamie and Alex. Tom knew it was Ethan's doing, a petty jab cloaked in concern. He handled the call himself, finding Jamie and Alex sitting under a tree, sharing a sketchbook. They weren't breaking any laws, but the call was a reminder of the town's watchful eyes. "I've got this," Tom told them, his voice firm. He drove them home, the silence in the car heavy but not hostile. "You don't have to hide," he said as they pulled into the driveway. "Not from me." Jamie's smile was small but real, and Tom felt a flicker of pride. He wasn't there yet, but he was moving forward. The turning point came at the town's annual fair. Jamie and Alex walked hand in hand, a bold move in Willow Creek's conservative heart. Tom was on duty, his uniform a barrier between him and the crowd's stares. Ethan approached, his voice loud enough to draw attention. "You okay with this, Sullivan? Your kid parading around like that?" Tom's fists clenched, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm proud of my son, Ethan. You should try being proud of yours." The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. Sarah, working a coffee stall, gave Tom a thumbs up, her rainbow pin gleaming. For the first time, Tom felt the town's gaze shift not entirely, but enough to know he wasn't alone. That night, Tom sat with Laura on the porch, the fair's lights glowing in the distance. "I'm scared," he admitted, his voice raw. "Not of Jamie. Of failing him." Laura leaned against him, her warmth steadying him. "You're not failing him, Tom. You're learning. That's what love does." Tom nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And for Jamie, that was enough. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. Willow Creek's high school was hosting a talent show, and Jamie had signed up with Alex to perform a spoken-word piece. Tom hadn't known until Mia begged him to attend, her excitement infectious. Laura insisted they go as a family, and Tom, though hesitant, agreed. The auditorium was packed, the air thick with anticipation. Jamie and Alex took the stage, their voices weaving a story of love, fear, and hope. Jamie's words were raw, his gaze locked on Alex as he spoke of finding himself in a world that didn't always understand. Alex's art projected behind them, vivid images of Willow Creek's streets blending with their story. Tom sat in the third row, his heart pounding. He saw himself in Jamie's words, the father who'd struggled, who'd faltered, but who was still there. When Jamie spoke of love, of Alex, of the family that held him up, Tom's eyes burned. Laura squeezed his hand, and Mia leaned against him, her sketchbook forgotten. The crowd erupted in applause, some standing, others hesitant. Sarah was on her feet, cheering, and even Rachel, who'd slipped in late, clapped with a grin. Ethan sat in the back, his expression unreadable, but Tom didn't care. This moment was for Jamie. After the show, Tom found Jamie backstage, Alex at his side. "I'm proud of you," Tom said, his voice thick. "Both of you." Jamie hugged him, a fierce, unexpected embrace that broke the last of Tom's walls. "Thanks, Dad," he whispered, "for trying." The drive home was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence, the kind that held a family together. At home, Mia hung Alex's sketch of Jamie in the living room, a symbol of their new normal. Laura cooked Jamie's favorite meal, and the laughter around the table felt like a victory. Willow Creek didn't change overnight. Whispers lingered, and Ethan's disapproval never faded. But Tom found allies Sarah, Rachel, even Maria, who invited the Sullivans for dinner. The town was learning, just as Tom was, and while the road wasn't smooth, it was passable. Months later, Tom stood at the precinct, pinning a new badge on his uniform, a small rainbow pin, a gift from Jamie. "For you," Jamie had said, his smile shy. "So you know I see you trying." Tom wore it every day, a quiet declaration of love. He'd been a cop, a protector, a man of rules. But now, he was something more, a father who'd learned to bend, to listen, to love without conditions. And in that love, he found a strength he'd never known, a strength that shocked not just his family, but the entire town. The Sullivans weren't perfect, but they were whole. And in Willow Creek, under the neon glow of Rosie's diner, that was enough.